On today's episode, voting is open for Mud Run Guide's Best of OCR Award. We've got a bunch of new listeners to welcome, and we talk with this year's second place winner, Allison Tai. This is the world's toughest podcast. Welcome to the world's toughest podcast, where we talk about any obstacle course race you'd like, as long as that's world's toughest mudder. Each week we talk to members of the WTM community and share stories of success and failure in the single greatest event in OCR. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the world's toughest podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Will Hicks. Thank you for listening. Before we start, you can email me at willhicks@gmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter at TheWillHicks or on Instagram at WillHicks. You can always leave a review for the show on iTunes, and we will read it on a future episode. Oh, and go to mudrunguide.com right now and vote in their year-end Best of OCR Awards. mudrunguide.com. I'll talk more about that in a minute. So last week, we talked about Ryan Woods and the fact that he did not pass a drug test at OCR World Championships. Not World's Toughest Mudder, but the recent OCR World Championships a couple months ago. I don't want to rehash the whole thing right now. You can find the episode on iTunes. It's episode 54. By the way, how crazy is it that we are 54 episodes in? Do you remember when we started this thing? Sharkbait and Maddie Gregg were our first two guests. Thanks for humoring me, you two. Since then, Maddie has completed his 50th event and has retired from Tough Mudder. And Sharkbait got engaged to Chris Betcher. Congratulations, you two crazy kids. Chris was my guest on episode 31. Talking about Clydesdales, running 75 miles. He ran 75 miles at 200 pounds or better. If you guys need an officiant for your wedding, let me know. I married my sister and her husband last year, and they're still married, so it must have worked. They'll probably have Coach or Sean do it. That's all right. Anyway, my point was, last episode, I got more feedback than I think any other episode I've done before on that episode. Here's a letter from a friend of the show, John Hobson. John emailed me at willhicks@gmail.com. I'm just going to read John's email. Like many others, I am shocked and saddened regarding the news of Ryan Wood's violation of the anti-doping policy at the OCR World Championships. This also came as a surprise to me to think and wonder about the use of PEDs in OCR of all sports. I was born and raised in the Bay Area, which is also the center of the Balco scandal in the early 2000s. I remember being so excited when the Giants acquired Barry Bonds from the Pirates in 1993. Over the years, Barry Bonds' muscles and head size grew quite rapidly, and although most fans in the Bay Area were in denial, I had a strong hunch as to what was going on. With home run records being continually broken by Bonds and Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire, steroids became a huge issue in baseball. Even some of my favorite and nastiest Raiders defensive players, Lyle Alzado and Bill Romanowski, were jacked on the juice. The other sport that I passionately watch, MMA, and the UFC, also has an issue with PEDs. While I believe and have wanted to believe Ryan Woods that he made a simple mistake with his supplement purchase, professional athletes in many other sports have made it impossible for his fans to believe in anything positive when it comes to PED and steroid use. Especially in the USA, sports fans are becoming predisposed to a mindset of guilty until proven innocent with professional athletes. I do not want OCR, the one sport that I love and am passionate about participating in, to have the same issues as the sports I grew up with. Whether you're an elite racer, an average Joe, or an adaptive athlete, we should all be competing on a level playing field. Thanks for the email, John. willhicks@gmail.com. John says he wants to believe Ryan, but baseball, football, and the MMA have made him skeptical. He doesn't want OCR following down that steroid PED path. I asked Allison Tai about it in our interview that we're going to listen to in a few minutes. She thinks Ryan made a mistake. You'll hear that in a minute. I had someone else contact me this week saying, on the opposite end, they're 100% convinced that he's lying. 100%. They listen to the interviews Ryan's done with Matt B. Davis and with the Link Endurance podcast, and they're sure of it, not a doubt in their mind. Look, I don't know, but I know that I don't know. And that's why I think a good drug testing program will have at least these 3 facets. 1, clear results. It's a pass-fail system. Either the drug is in your system or it's not. That's all we need to know. 2, clear penalties. The penalties are set and cannot be mitigated down. You don't get less of a penalty because of who you are, and you don't get an extra penalty because of any pre-OCR anything. I think the penalty should be fail once, 1-year ban. Fail twice, a 5-year ban. If you fail a 3rd time, it's a lifetime ban from OCR. And third thing I think the drug plan will need is clear communication. Everything is in writing, posted on the race organization's website, and available to any athlete at any time. That's what I hope to see from Tough Mudder and Spartan next year. Clear results, clear penalties, and clear communication. We need to take the emotion and judgment calls out of it, because nobody wants OCR to turn into cycling or the Russian Olympic Federation, where you have to cheat or you cannot be competitive. Anyway, thank you for the feedback and the kind words on last week's episode. A couple people told me that was the best episode we have done, so thank you. Hey, welcome to our new listeners from Overcast and Spotify. Overcast is a podcast player app for iOS that we've been getting a lot of new listeners on. Welcome. Happy to have you. And Spotify is making a big push for podcasts on their platform. And we got an email inviting us to join the Cool Kids Club there. So if you are on Android or know someone who is, Spotify is probably the easiest way for you Android guys to listen to the podcast. Just search Spotify for Tough Mudder. We're the first podcast that pops up. No downloading necessary. Search Spotify for Tough Mudder. 2 more things before we talk with Allison Tai. You know you can email me at willhicks@gmail.com. Would you like me to email you? Each Monday I send out an email to everyone who's on my mailing list. Right now we're doing a bunch of World's Toughest Mudder Christmas gear list stuff. I sent out a couple emails full of stuff that I have that I like. And next week the email is full of stuff from the community that they like. There's a link on our Facebook page at facebook.com/worldstoughestpod where you can sign up to be on our email list. Or, check this out, text the word tough to the number 22828. Text tough to the number 22828, and you can subscribe to our email list without even pausing this podcast. The word tough, the number 22828. What a time to be alive. Before we talk with Allison Tai, let's read some iTunes reviews. The first one comes from SurferDude1312. SurferDude writes, WTM readiness, 5 stars. This is my first year for WTM. This podcast is great, filled with tons of great info and guests to give the best insight possible on the world's greatest event. Keep up the great work. Thank you, SurferDude. How did you do at World's Toughest? Let me know. willhicks@gmail.com. Next review comes from FI97, and then there's some Asian symbols after 97. I don't know how to pronounce that. FI97. FI97 writes, 5 stars. He wrote that out. He did the work for me. 5 stars. Recently ran my first Tough Mudder at Tough Mudder Central, Florida. This podcast helped me through all of my training and gave me plenty of information so I wasn't going in blind. Extremely entertaining. Keep up the great work and good luck to all running this weekend. Thank you, FI97. Congratulations on running your first Tough Mudder. I think if you asked anyone in the world's toughest mudder community about their first Tough Mudder, they could tell you stories and stories about it. I've heard Amelia Boone tell stories about her first Tough Mudder. I know I could talk about mine all day. Last review this week comes from Sam Markulik. 5 stars. Great podcast. It has been very informative and great for our long road trips to Tough Mudders. My husband Chris and I will run our 25th Tough Mudder this year, and we have signed up for WTM 2018. Can't wait to hear more. P.S. We voted for you to be the best OCR podcast in the Mud Run Guide Best of OCR 2017 vote. Good luck. Sam Markulik. Oh, thank you for the reminder, Sam. Before we get there, what race are you getting your 25th at? That's a big deal. Well done. And I will see you in Atlanta. Thanks again to Surfer Dude 1312, FI97, and Sam Markulik for leaving reviews for the podcast and for being a part of the show. If you would like to be a part of the show, you can leave a review on iTunes like they did. Open the Purple Podcast app on your iPhone, search for Tough Mudder, and then click our logo. It's the first one that pops up. Then scroll way down and click Write a Review. In that last review, Sam mentioned that they had voted for us as Best OCR Podcast on Mud Run Guide. Here's the deal with that. Every year, Mud Run Guide does a thing where you can vote for your favorite race series, your favorite male athlete, favorite female athlete, etc. Well, this year, for the first year ever, Best OCR Podcast is a category. Also, this is the first year World's Toughest Podcast has been around. So, coincidence? Maybe. But no. Now, obviously, right now, you are listening to the World's Toughest Podcast. But I don't want to tell you who to vote for. I don't want to put my thumb on the scale, so to speak. So, I'm not going to tell you to go to mudrunguide.com, click the banner that says Vote Now, then enter your name and email address, then scroll way to the bottom, and the last category is Best OCR Podcast, where you can vote for World's Toughest Podcast. I want to be clear. I am not asking you to go to mudrunguide.com, click the banner that says Vote Here, enter your name and email address, and then scroll way to the bottom and vote for World's Toughest Podcast as Best OCR Podcast. That's not what I'm asking you to do right now as we're listening to this episode. So we're clear. You can if you want to, but I'm not asking you to go to mudrunguide.com, click the banner that says Vote Now, enter your name and address, and then scroll way to the bottom and vote for World's Toughest Podcast as Best OCR Podcast. Good. Our guest today is Allison Tai. Allison has probably been our most frequent elite guest this year, but she's had an amazing year, so I'm not going to apologize for it. She finished in first place in the Toughest Mudder Series. She finished in first place on the Holy Grail Leaderboard. She finished in second place at World's Toughest Mudder with 85 miles in 24 hours and 40 minutes. That is the third best finish for a woman ever at World's Toughest Mudder. The only two women with a better time and mileage count are Amelia Boone with 90 miles in 2012 and Rea Kolbl with 90 miles this year. Allison's 85 miles in 24:40 would have won the race any other year but this year and 2012. In addition to that, she opened a gym this year with her husband, and she has 2 daughters that love the princess rides at Disneyland. It's time to talk with Allison Tai. Let's go to the phones. Allison Tai, congratulations on your second place finish at World's Toughest 2017.
Hey, thanks, Will.
You ran 85 miles in 24 hours and 40 minutes. That is the third best performance by a woman ever at World's Toughest Mudder. How do you feel about your race?
Oh, I hadn't done the stats. That's pretty cool. I had a hard time in this race. I just kind of wasn't 100% there mentally. So I feel really good that my pit crew was able to like slap me back out, and I finished the race and kind of kept mentally strong, because it was certainly a battle this year for whatever reason. I just I had to struggle out there mentally, but that kind of makes it all that more awesome to make it to the finish line then when you consider quitting, and then kind of push yourself past your kind of mental limits and then make it to the finish line. So kind of some of those really, really hard races are where you learn the most about yourself and what you're truly capable of pushing through.
Why do you think it was harder mentally this year?
I kind of have a feeling it's just that I've done it so many times in the desert. And I feel like one of my friends had this issue where he went out and then he just quit like partway through the night. And it's like, what? Are you kidding me? You're just like, you spend all this money and do all this training, and then, you just pack it up in the middle of the night. And it's just kind of once that like kind of luster of world's toughest mudder in the desert wears off and you've been out there enough, I think that's when it almost becomes more challenging, because, you've done it so many times and that kind of newness wears off. And that's kind of maybe when you need to tap into that like grindiness and just kind of getting it done, rather than it being this like totally new adventure. That being said, I don't normally do races. Like I'm not one of those that do really long distance races twice. Like I've never done, when I used to run marathons and Ironmans, I'd only do the course once. I would never sign up for the same course, just because I'm kind of a cat that way. And I like, just new things. And, so I feel like it's just one of those things, is it just gets harder if you've done it, a few times. And, I was really excited about just having that last dance in the desert, so to speak. But, I think I just, I got to that point where, who knows, but, maybe it was just that I'd been out there a lot and now it was more work than that kind of new adventure feel.
Did you say you're kind of a cat that way?
Yeah, well, I don't know, cat, dog, whatever kind of animal gets super easily distracted. But yeah, I tend to like, do a lot of new routes around my house. And I don't like to do, the same kind of routine over and over again. Sure. I really like to like explore new things. And yeah, especially if I'm doing like a really long, hard race, I tend to like not go back to the same one. But, 3 years doing the same race maybe was, more work than shiny newness this year, but who knows what it was. Sometimes, you're just not 100% there heart-wise, but I guess the important thing is that you keep riding it out, and I kept riding it out. It was just kind of funny because I think we've talked before about this, but I always have that one lap, like just after the sun goes down, where I'm like, oh my God, like it's so hard, and we're only an eighth or a third of the way through, 8 hours in, but then it goes away. And so I think even I was walking with Mappy Davis, and I was like, no, it's going to go away. It's going to go away. And then I'd see him later, and I'd be like, no, it's going to go away. I'm going to get over it. It's a hump. It's going to come. But I just kind of kept on. I just didn't kind of get into my groove. I just, kind of had to fight through a little more than I normally would. But,
That's kind of a thing. Like, it feels like you're going uphill, and then eventually you reach a point where you're like, okay, and you're like back downhill again. Like you got to push through it.
Yeah, I was just waiting for the peak of the roller coaster, but it just seemed like I had plateaued at the top there, where it was just more unpleasant than it was. But, at the same time, even when you are at your, like, not your absolute mentally best in a race, you're surrounded by such amazing people that it's, even at the same time when you're feeling a bit miserable, you still have this, like, insane joy and just happiness about being out there immersed in the experience and the community and stuff. So it's a bit weird that way, how you can be both like super miserable and just like, your heart can be just filled with joy at the same time. So
you said it was really hard for you mentally this year. How did you do physically?
Physically, I was fine. Yeah. Like the body held up, everything felt good. I mean, I could have probably went for a run, the day after. But yeah, for me, it was just a mental struggle this year. I just really kind of was struggling to feel like I was ever getting into that groove. It felt like I never really 100% warmed up. And then, when you kind of get into that steady state, once they open all the obstacles, and because I always find like the sprint lap, that first hour where you're just kind of going, it's like, okay, you're not getting into your groove. And then I'm almost like relieved and there's just a sense of calm when the obstacles open, because now it's like, okay, now we slow down and kind of get into that rhythm. And I didn't quite get into that rhythm there. And then when the night came, I kind of had that dark point, and then it just kind of lasted. Like I didn't really have roller coasters in this race as much as I normally do. It was just kind of like, ugh. So who knows what that was, but it was still an amazing experience. And, it's still incredible, even if you maybe don't have the most fun at the time. It's still just an amazing thing to be a part of.
Tough Mudder kind of threw you a curveball this year, not opening the obstacles until later than they ever have before.
It wasn't, I think, a huge curveball so much for the people that had been doing toughest. I kind of half expected that. So I think in a way it was a curveball because it was World's Toughest, and usually it's an hour in. But I think when the curveball came, anybody who had been doing the toughest series is like, oh, okay, this is how we're rolling. And I think we're kind of used to the changes kind of, rolling through as well in the process of them figuring out toughest in the year. So yeah, originally it was like, I can't remember what obstacle I was at, but it was about an hour and I was like sprinting past it. And then they were like, yeah, it was maybe Pandora's Box. I don't know, one of them. And, they're like, yeah, it's not open till like 3:30 or 4:30 or some craziness. They're 4.5 hours in or something. And, so yeah, at that point, it just ended up being a lot of running at the beginning, which was great. There's a lot of free miles up front, but then, when they did throw the obstacles at you, it really changed the race.
How did you do on the obstacles this year?
I did okay. We've been doing a lot of grip strength training, and I felt like my obstacle proficiency was pretty good, but I always struggle with Funky Monkey later into the night. It's always that middle wheel, and it always just kind of bucks me right off. So I think I probably should have figured out a different way that I could do it. But I just didn't. And so I ended up taking the penalty on Funky quite a bit, which sucked. That was a hard penalty. But I think it's great that they, really increased the penalty and really pushed people toward obstacle completion. But I thought they were really fun. I thought they were great obstacles. It was just a big challenge come later in the night when things got slippery and people got tired.
What did you think of Kong Infinity?
Oh my gosh, what a fun, innovative obstacle. I really like that one. It's just, I love too the grippy rubberiness of the rings on that one. It was, I think, a real treat compared to the slick rings. Just the innovation of that obstacle was phenomenal. It was just really fun to kind of roll that thing.
And then the Pandora's Box obstacle. What'd you think of that one?
Oh, that again was fun. It just, it bred some fear in people and got people really nervous and excited about having to conquer that fear. Just there's so many fears in that one, like claustrophobia, electricity, darkness, just all rolled into one. But I really like that one, actually. It was, as long as you stay down on your belly, you were fine. I got zapped one time only because I picked my back foot up too high and I kicked one of the wires. But other than that, I went through without getting zapped. But I'm also smaller. I imagine if you're a big dude, that might be a little bit more tricky.
As far as pacing goes, how did you go at the beginning? Were you in the kind of the front pack, or did you kind of take it easy at the beginning?
Yeah, no, I was top 10 in the beginning, but I definitely didn't go out as hard as some of the people did. I kind of have my world's toughest pacing and then my toughest pacing, and they're different. Of course, I start out faster in the first few laps than I end up finishing the race, but I took it pretty conservatively, but, also maximizing. I know I probably do a little bit like any ultramarathoner, be like, that's too fast in the beginning, but I think I try to find the best balance between getting the most obstacle-free miles and not totally burning myself out.
You started in the top 10 there, and you finished at second. When did you start passing people?
I started, Deanna and Lindsay and I were running together for quite some time. And I think Morgan was ahead of me for a while before she hurt herself. So I didn't pass her. She just got pulled out, poor thing. And then, which just sucks because she would have had the race of her life there, just with the obstacles and stuff. But side note, I think it's just really phenomenal and shows how amazing she is as a person that, she took it in such stride. And, she's just got such an amazing attitude that something that could have been the race of her life, she would have done so well there because the obstacles are obviously her strength and the penalties were so bad. So who knows what would have happened had she not had that injury. But so I think she was ahead of me, and then she pulled out, and then, I was back and forth with Deanna. I don't even remember. Like, we were kind of like just leapfrogging, so I don't remember when it became clear that they had, fallen back or I had pushed forward or whatever happened at that time.
I saw you in the pit overnight. It might have been during that dark lap you're talking about. Your husband was helping you, and you had them cut the hood off of your rain jacket. Do you remember that?
Yeah. That was my favorite rain jacket. Oh man. So I think the first time you saw me, I was wearing one of those swim runs, and I thought it would be the perfect thing because it looked like the weather was going to be like last year. And last year, before I got injured, I was running really hot. So I decided on a swim run, and it was like the snot rocket was so cold. I loved it because the snot rocket was like Arctic enema cold, and then the Arctic enema was like snot rocket warm. I don't know how they did it, but that was the coldest snot rocket. And so at that lap when I was wearing the swim run, and it just kind of the temperature dropped, and I got out of snot rocket, and I was like, oh my goodness, like I am like really uncomfortably cold. And so I started to try to run and like warm myself up, but I just got to the point, you get to that point where it's kind of no man, you can't return, the point of no return or whatever it is, where you get that like deep core freeze. And so finishing off that lap was, really, really challenging. I started to like get like freaked out when I had to get in the water and stuff, just because I could feel my core temperature just plummeting. So I got in from that lap, and I was just like, I don't know why I'm here. Why am I doing this sort of thing? We all know that feeling. And then I put on a wetsuit, and my husband poured a whole bunch of hot water down, and then frog skin on top of that and a windbreaker. So I was wearing a lot of neoprene, but I ended up just a little too warm. And I think that's probably the best place to be at a race like World's Toughest, is just slightly too warm. So that worked out really well for me. And then I went back out on course, and although my mind still wasn't 100% in it, my body felt a lot better. And I think even just that change from being absolutely freezing cold to being slightly warm was enough to kind of nudge me over the line and give myself some confidence that I could finish the race off.
We should give a shout out to your husband for his pit crew work.
He is phenomenal. And he had both our two children in there. And not only was he like, the most phenomenal pit crew imaginable for me, but he was also just helping anybody that came in. Pouring hot water down people and like chasing them back out and making sure that they were like fed and watered. And he's got a lot of experience, and he's really great about just sharing that with the general community. So yeah, I think a lot of people, we got a lot of messages after just like thanking him for pushing them back out and pouring hot water in their suits and stuff. He was pretty much like nonstop, just running around pouring water in other people's suits while I was out on laps. So it was pretty neat, and watching our two kids. So we had a pretty big community there to help out. So that definitely helped. But he's just phenomenal, and his charts and stuff are crazy.
Tell me about those charts. I saw some of them on the live feed, and I saw them when I was standing with him. What does he track while you're running?
Well, he tracks like also like what am I eating, what am I drinking, that kind of thing. And then he tracks times that people around me have gone out and how fast they're moving and how fast I'm moving, what time I go out. Kind of a funny story, though. We're trying to figure out if I should go out on my last lap. And Andrew from the community, he was like, let's go out, let's do another lap. And I was like, okay, I promise I'll go out with you if I can walk. And then I'm like, let's just walk this lap. I just want to walk. I'm just like, we don't have to go anywhere in a hurry. So we come in and we're trying to really figure out if I need to go out on my last lap. And so my husband's like, third place left at this time, and she's moving this fast. And he had all these like numbers for me. And of course I've been running in the desert for like 22 hours. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. He's like, okay, just go out. I'm like, all right. So then I head out, and this guy yells at me that third place is right behind me. So, that is a friend of ours from Vancouver. Is like, third place is right behind you. You better run. So I just took off. My last lap, I was running just afraid that I was going to get caught. Because that's the worst thing, right? When you've pushed through this whole race and then you get caught in the last lap because you're lollygagging. So I really thought I had to turn on the jets for that last lap. And I just dug really deep and kind of left what I had out there on the course. And it turned out that Michelle Ford didn't even go out. I had a good time bugging her that I was running in fear from her the whole time, because she's a really, really good ultra runner, and she can turn it on at the last minute, and she's also really good at the obstacles. So I knew that if anybody could, turn that around in the end, it would definitely be Michelle, just knowing her. So, yeah, I just gassed it on the last lap, and it ended up being kind of neat, right? Because otherwise I would have walked in, it would have been fun, but being able to just bust it around the course on the last lap was kind of a good way to leave it all out there on the course and really feel like I had finished it strong.
Was that guy trying to help you, or was he just wrong?
I think he was just messing with me, quite frankly. At the finish line, everybody was like, what were you running from? You looked like, like you were like sprinting to the sprinting after running 24 hours, not quite sprinting, but as best I could. And everybody's like, why were you running so fast? What's happening there? Like, you just wanted to finish it stronger. I'm like, no. This guy told me I had to. And he was like, yeah, sorry about that. I just said that. Like, I'm never listening to you again.
You crossed the finish line with 85 miles at 12:40 p.m. You knew your second place was secure. How did you feel crossing the finish line?
Pretty awesome. It's just like we were saying, like, the more you have to kind of fight back those mental demons, I think the more amazing you feel when you get to the finish line, just because there's so much doubt. And an endurance race like this, it kind of creeps up at you, but I really kind of had to push those demons back. And so crossing the finish line, knowing that I had made it and that I'd done it, just felt incredible. As I'm sure like a lot of the mudders out there had the same kind of experience and just kept on beating those demons back and fighting that urge to quit. And it's pretty neat when you're just standing there. You can see the look on people's faces and kind of that reflection of how you felt, just that incredible sense of accomplishment and just making yourself a stronger, better person.
Would you have done anything different this year?
I think I probably should have worked a little bit more on my different techniques I could use for funky. I think looking back, that's I should have tried some different things, like sideways, backwards, on the monkey bars, maybe like just hooking my elbow or something. I just keep running into it the same way, and I think once you start getting tired and things start getting slippery, maybe just figuring out a different technique for that. Because you do see a lot of people using different techniques, and some of them just don't work. But, I feel like if you're struggling on an obstacle, you should probably figure out a different way to do it. Like I thank God for the mutter community, the hanging tough. By the end of it, I would get somebody to pick me up and help me lift me to the ring, because the ring was really high, and then I'd just hook through the rings like I have done in the past. Actually, I got that tip off your show, and it just was like so much easier than trying to struggle through when your grip is fried and the rings are soaking wet.
Allison,
sometimes it's about just like figuring out a different way to do it, not necessarily just figuring out a better way to muscle through or putting more energy in. It's just figuring out how to make an obstacle more efficient.
I saw you doing the I don't even know we need to come up with a name for it, but where you basically hook your elbow through the rings on Kong at the Tougher Mudder, I think it was SoCal on the live feed.
Oh, look at Allison.
And there we go.
Talk about that form.
So that right there is about grip strength, okay? She has used it, right? She has used it up. We've seen it. We've talked about it. Every opportunity, remember, or every upper body obstacle is an opportunity or it can hurt you or help you. And she obviously is done. Her upper body strength is done. She probably, has nothing left.
But that's an experienced athlete to know to hook the arm, right? Because that's you learn that from failing.
Yep.
Oh, and then somebody told you, or you saw somebody, or you thought, oh, if I hook my arm, I can save my grip.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it's funny, actually. I actually met the guy that, I can't remember his name now, but he actually gave you that tip on this show, and I picked it up. I'm a little, I think naturally I'm not very coordinated, so it doesn't really look very good when I do it, but it's a little like herky-jerky or whatever. But,
no, it's very graceful.
I decided I don't know, but that's very nice of you, but probably far too nice. But so I figured at Tougher I should just practice it, and because I do it a little bit at the gym, but it's not quite the same as being up there, and there's just spacing between the rings and stuff. So yeah, I wanted to try it because I thought that would be a big advantage at World's Toughest. But then of course Kong was a totally different beast at this race, which it's really the coolest part about Tough Mudder is you can go in there being like, okay, I'm so prepared for Kong, and now I'm not,
Right.
And they just kind of throw those curveballs at you, and that's what makes it so exciting.
How do you think the Toughest Mudder series affected World's Toughest Mudder? Maybe for you or for the race in general?
I think a lot of people were just better prepared for the night and just kind of the unique challenges it brings. But then at the same time, I think a lot of the newer people that hadn't done tough World's Toughest Mudder and had done some of the toughest series were a little unprepared for that jump, because they're like, 8 hours is a long time. I can do 8 hours, so 24 should not be that much harder. But it's kind of a difference of doing like a half marathon versus a marathon. The math is not just times two. There's some sort of I don't know what the equation is, but it's like infinitely harder to run for 24 hours than it is for 8. So I think a lot of people were just kind of like a bit shocked at the enormity of finishing this 24-hour race. Once doing it, people, I think, a little bit of just a false sense of the kind of effort that it takes if they're new. And so they were just a little bit surprised, just, talking to some of the people that I talked to. But at the same time, it just people were just way better prepared for the nighttime stuff. And, we had so many times to get out there and dry run and be on the obstacles. And so I think in the ways people were better prepared, but in many ways, some people were just kind of like thrown back by the 8 to 24-hour jump. That's a big one.
It's crazy to think about when you're done with the 8-hour race, and that's great. But then at World's Toughest, you finish the 8 hours, and literally the race hasn't begun yet. It doesn't start till midnight.
You're not even the cliff is not even open for another 4 hours. So it's just there's such a big jump between 8 and 24. And although 8 seems really long, and 8 is really long, it's just that 24 hours is like. It's funny because if you think about the length of your life, 24 hours is such a tiny little time, If you had like an enormous project and I told you had 24 hours, there's no way you'd get it done, right? Between all the other things we do in a day, including sleeping. But 24 hours when you're running around in these loops over obstacles in the desert is a very long time.
You ran Toughest Mudder Atlanta this year. What do you think of World's Toughest Atlanta 2018?
I think it's a great venue. I think everybody that was in Atlanta loved it. I can foresee some like knee and hip and ankle issues just based on that kind of like really muddy, slick camber stuff we were running on sometimes. There's just going to be a different list of things people have to be worried about or things people have to be cognizant of to have a good race and to finish strong. Just all the mud and the slippery and then the slantiness is definitely going to change things. But it's beautiful. Hopefully it's warm. I guess the weather's a bit touch and go in November. So I guess we can all hope for warm, except for Amelia Boone, who's hoping for freezing cold. She can hope for freezing cold and everybody else can hope for some mild weather in November in Atlanta. But I feel like everybody's really excited, and I struggled with being at the same venue for, another year. And so I'm really looking forward to it being in another venue just for that kind of change. It just kind of gives it a new excitement to it. I love the Vegas venue. It's magical. And it's just almost like you're not even in the, like anywhere on earth anymore. It's just so different, especially when you're from, the coastal Northwest like I am. But I think Atlanta is a really great venue, and I think it's going to be a really good year, and just hopefully the weather cooperates. And I don't know what they're going to do to replace the cliff, but I think that's sort of a fun question mark too that everybody has, and everybody can kind of look forward to the next huge challenge that they throw at us when they're not able to use that big cliff anymore.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do. They mentioned in an email once, they talked about hot springs. And like they want something epic, and I was like, I don't know how epic a hot spring is going to be, but okay.
I would love a hot spring obstacle, especially if you had to do 30 of those those aerobics classes in the pool, aqua aerobics or whatever it is, like 50 bicep curls or something where they had you staying and relaxing in the hot tub a little while every lap. That would be bad.
That's actually something. If it's freezing cold and you're running around in a wetsuit, and then all of a sudden
you have to go through
you have to go through like a hot spring obstacle and then back into the cold immediately. I could mess with you.
Yeah. I know I have the same problem if it's like a hot bath on a cold day. I'm like, I'm not getting out. I'm just going to sleep here. So that might be the real challenge. Maybe they'll just like make it really enticing in there so you don't want to get out.
So they did
serve beer and donuts or something.
They did World's Toughest in New Jersey for 3 years and then Vegas for 4 years. What do you think the ideal length at any venue would be?
I think 2 or 3 years. They get to better using, and I think we saw that Tough Mudder is really amazing about just upping their game, right? So they get to just better knowledge of the venue and what more they can use, and sometimes they just get additional permitting or whatever to expand out. But then I think at some point, like for me this year, it just gets a little bit less exciting, and that's nothing to do with them. It's just that's what happens in your own mind, and it just provides new and unique challenges. But I think after 3 years, 2, 3 years, maybe they've figured out the venue, and then maybe move on to the next one.
You mentioned that after World's Toughest, you and your family go to Disneyland. Are you guys going to go to Disney World next year?
I know we were looking at it. It's fairly close. But I think this next year coming up, we're actually going to fly out, my husband and I, and leave the kids at home because we are planning on going to the Enduro OCR World Championships. And my kids are really excited about kangaroos in Australia. So I think we're going to bring them to Australia and do World's Toughest just as, like a week trip, him and I. And, leave the girls at home. And then maybe the next year, I think my husband would die if he had to go to Disneyland next year. He's really, outdoorsy and not into crowds and stuff like that. So it's a bit of a stretch dragging him to Disneyland every year. So I think he needs a break from Disneyland and maybe just tour around and do some hiking in Australia. And,
Did the girls have fun at Disneyland?
Oh my gosh, of course. Yeah. One of our good friends was doing the race, and he brought his daughter out, and she's amazing with kids. They totally look up to her. So she toured them around Disneyland, and, they saw the princesses and went on a few of those kiddie rides and stuff. So it was really fun. And I could walk this year, which was great. Last year I was on crutches after snapping my knee in the race. So this year was a lot better. I was more mobile, and it was a really fun trip this year. So who knows? Maybe we'll hit up Disney World, not this year, but next. I'm assuming that they're going to stay that way. So they're going to stay at the Atlanta venue for at least a couple of years. So
you think? Yeah.
We'll go back next year.
Hey, you left a very kind review on Facebook for the podcast. Thank you.
Oh, well, you're welcome. All truth. I think this podcast is just such an important part of the community now, and it's it's one of those ones. Some of the podcasts, I'm okay, I'll get around to listening to that, but I'm probably the first listeners to your podcast whenever it comes out because it's just so relevant to what's going on, and the guests are so great, and of course you're just an amazing podcaster, and I think you could do anything regardless of genre. So thanks for putting this out for us.
You are very kind, Allison. Thank you. You were kind of my first elite that was kind of a friend of the show. So anyway, I appreciate that very much.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
In fact, I don't know if you remember this. You passed me in Atlanta, and it was my last lap. I doubt it was your last lap. But I was like, was that Allison Tai? I wasn't even sure. We hadn't talked before yet. And then after that race is kind of when we started talking every race. So anyway.
Yeah, I remember I met you officially at Whistler in the tent room there. Yeah.
God, I really liked Whistler. That was a great race.
Yeah, it was. It was an awesome venue. I'm just kind of sad they're not going back. But then, they had such a low turnout. I can see why.
Yeah.
They can't make it back. But, it was pretty amazing. And the Bears really another element to that race.
Oh, yeah. That was just everything about that race. Anyway, I'd never been up there before. It was a great race. Hey, something happened in the OCR community recently. Ryan Woods was the first OCR athlete to not pass a drug test at the OCR World Championships. What are your thoughts on drug testing, and specifically Tough Mudder? What direction do you think they should take with that?
I think drug testing is a hugely important part of the sport, especially as we grow and become more professionalized. There's more money in it, all that stuff. And I'm the kind of person that is if somebody is caught doping and cheating, then we should throw the book at them, and they should be banned. It drives me nuts that Lance Armstrong is still, doing any sort of sport, because he's clearly been cheating and lying for years about doping and just this unfair advantage. And I know there's some particularly particularities in cycling that make it pretty universal. But yeah, with Ryan Woods, I just feel like that's a mistake that anybody could make. And I really, knowing Ryan, you know, I just don't feel like I don't feel like that's something that he'd do intentionally. So I think, you know, as a community, we felt a little torn because we did want people, you know, to be tested for drugs, and we did want dopers to be kind of exposed and, you know, just have them punished accordingly. But I think we were torn because it was Ryan Woods and everybody loves Ryan Woods. And it was clearly like such a silly mistake that a lot of people could have made, just, picking up the wrong bottle. So, you know, it's heartbreaking. And I think everybody was so sad that it was Ryan, and such a silly mistake. It does seem a little silly that, you know, it would be that specific drug mechanism, because I don't know. Would that really make a difference? I don't really know much about it, to be perfectly honest, but I just don't feel like that's the kind of risk that he would take, you know, doing it on purpose. So I feel like it was just like a stupid mistake, and it's kind of sad that he got busted on it, but doesn't really show his character, how he responded to it, and, you know, how he just kind of owned up to it. And I guess it's only a year. And hopefully we'll get him back, and hopefully, you know, there won't be too many lasting repercussions for him. But at the same time, it is really awesome that, you know, we're ramping up the drug testing, and that it's working on some level there.
Allison, do you have any sponsors you're working with? Anything you'd like to plug?
Oh, same as always. Still working with Reebok, and and my gym here, Fancy OCR. They're great. That's where I do some of my training at. So just all the people that are, you know, in that community, they've just been so phenomenal and so supportive of me that, I feel like we're just super lucky here to have built this like amazing community of people, and people that love obstacle course racing, and just makes training, and, you know, because that's the bulk of what we do. It's not racing, it's training. And so it just really makes it awesome to have such an amazing group of people to go out there and train with.
Allison Tai, any last thoughts on World's Toughest Mudder 2017?
No, I mean, it was just amazing. Just the people out there, like Robert Killian, that last lap is just like, what? So inspiring. And, you know, seeing Lindsay out there hobbling on her, you know, broken ankles, and she was just so determined to finish that race. And Deanna out there, after all she's suffered through, my God, she's a champion. Just showing up, that lady is just amazing. Forget finishing the race after all she's done. So just being out there and just being inspired by everybody. The one-legged warrior, I don't even really know his name, but he was so happy every time I passed him that I would actually look for him on course and just like suck in his energy as I walked past him. Because just like every time I saw him, and, you know, like I was slipping on the pyramid scheme wall. I have no idea how we made it up, you know, every lap. And oh my gosh. And then the two wheelchair teams, Jesse and Superman, and the teams that were like, it was just so incredible seeing the people out there. And just, there's a lot of amazing stories that have come from it. So I'm hoping CBS captures some of that on the 23rd. I think it'll be a really fun episode to watch. So I think, I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm really looking forward to 2018 in Atlanta.
Allison Tai, thanks much.
Thank you, Will.
Special thanks to Allison Tai for appearing in this episode. Well done, Allison. Come back anytime. So when you go to mudrunguide.com and vote for World's Toughest Podcast, I want you to vote 3 times. Not by cheating. I want you to tell 2 of your OCR buddies about the show and have them listen to an episode or 2, get their thoughts on it, and then have them vote. You can vote even if you're not in the United States. If you're in Canada, Ian Richardson, Van City Simon. If you're in Ireland, Ronan Kirby, Jacinta Connolly. If you're in England, Craig Orcutt, Ian Kay, and of course the U.S. of America, Drake Stumbo, Haley Goldstein, Travis Johnson, Elliot Rube, KL Hope, Mike Cross, Anyway, I can't list everyone by name right now. You can vote from any country, and you can only vote once. But get 2 of your friends to vote also, and we'll win this thing. Go vote right now. Email me when you're done. willhicks@gmail.com. Thanks a lot, you guys.